Good morning, people. Welcome back to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. We've got a really big show for you guys today, but before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel. Right, on the show this morning, we are going to be talking about some players who look set to be leaving the club. We're also going to be talking a little bit about a surprise potential move for Marco Verratti, which I think... we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll also be talking about Erik ten Hag's words on potential new signings, on the issues of not being able to score goals. We've got a bit of an update on Kolo Muani as well, Mohamed Kudus, a couple of other bits as well. Quite a lot to jump into. So do get involved in the live chat. Do let me know your thoughts on everything. Of course, we will talk about the game in a little bit because I know everybody wants to talk about that. So we will talk about the game, of course, but let's get through some of the news first. So let's start off with the outgoings then. So Erik ten Hag was asked after the match last night about why Donny van de Beek and Brandon Williams were not in the squad. And Erik ten Hag says, "We need players totally with their heads in our team. It's obvious that they are looking for something else." So it looks like both of them are not part of the Manchester United project. It looks like both Donny van de Beek and Brandon Williams will be leaving the club in the coming weeks. Why it's taken this so long, I don't know. Is it going to be a loan? Are we going to get any money? Who knows at this stage? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. You know, we thought it was going to be a permanent deal to Real Sociedad. Then it was a loan with an option to buy. Now it's a loan. Now they're not even sure about a loan. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one. But there's no injury. Both of them are not in the squad because they are not part of the project ultimately. So, and then Fabrizio Romano has said that apparently the Harry Maguire situation was that he had an injury. So Harry Maguire wasn't being pushed out, apparently. He says he had a little problem in the last training session. So make of that what you will. I mean, after the result yesterday, you have to be, we'll talk about it properly in a minute, but you really, really need to be pushing out these people who aren't part of your squad. You do. Like, we have to raise some money and we have to buy some more players. And then Fabrizio Romano said the following on the midfield position. He says, Manchester United continue to work on the market. Everything is open, especially in midfield. The departure of Donny van de Beek is crucial for the Sofian Amrabat deal. Nothing concrete for Harry Maguire at the moment after the failure with West Ham. Do you know what? The one thing that I will just say from the off as a result of last night's game, why did we agree to sell Fred if we then couldn't go and then buy Amrabat? It makes zero sense to me because I know Fred isn't a world-class player, but Fred would have done a job yesterday in that midfield. He would have. Him over Mason Mount, a midfield of Casemiro, Fred and Bruno would have been much better than the midfield we saw yesterday. So I just don't understand Manchester United's logic of selling Fred for what, 13 million euros including add-ons. What's that? Less than 10 million pounds including add-ons. I think it was about 7 or 8 million pounds up front. And then you're not even being able to, field a proper midfield without him. It makes zero sense. He clearly doesn't fancy Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay didn't get any minutes yesterday. Does this mean that Scott McTominay's leaving the club? Well, we have to hope so. Only because otherwise I don't see where we're going to get funds from. We need to raise money desperately. We really, really do. Me sitting here telling you Brandon Williams is going and Donny van de Beek's going. We're not going to get any money through either of them. We need to sell Scott McTominay. We need to sell Harry Maguire. We need to sell people who actually will raise some funds for us. And you know what? We have to really, really be clear here that the Glazers, I know people will say, oh, when you lose, you blame the Glazers. It's always the Glazers, regardless of whether we win, lose or draw. The fault is on the Glazers. It is. They do not back the managers properly. They don't. People will say, oh, you've spent 150 million, you've spent 160 million, whatever. But when you actually look at all the players that have left over the last kind of 12 or so months, you've lost Cristiano Ronaldo. You've lost one of the greatest goal scorers ever, right? And you haven't replaced him. You've got Martial and Rashford. Rashford literally looked absolutely miserable playing as a striker yesterday. He did not want to do it, you could tell. He looked like a kid who's throwing his toys out the pram, didn't he? He's not good in the striker position. What are we supposed to do? I mean, the only criticism I'll say here is like, why did they sign Rasmus Højlund? They must, because they found out about the injury when they did his medical. At that point, do they not sit there and say, well, he's going to cost us £60 million plus add-ons and he's injured and we need a striker now? Like, did that not go through their heads? That's the bit that's frustrating me. Is obviously if he comes in and hits the ground running, then the conversation changes. But to be starting the season with Marcus Rashford as the striker, who's one of the best left-sided wingers in world football, putting him in the striker position, it makes zero sense. It really, really does. But right, so let's carry on with that bit then. So yeah, so it looks like Donny van de Beek has to go before we sign Sofian Amrabat, which I don't get at all. I don't. I really, really don't. We clearly do have enough money to go and buy Sofian Amrabat. We've just sold Fred. We've just sold Matis Kovar. We've got about 25 million euros in the bank from, you know, those two sales. Why do we now have to wait for Donny van de Beek to go out on loan? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. How does that make any logical sense? You don't really ever get any money from loans, you know? We're still going to have to pay his wages. Yeah, very, very strange. But let me know what you think about that one. Do you think that Sofian Amrabat is going to make the difference? Do you think he's going to come in and will completely solve all our problems? For me personally, I think he'll help the midfield, but if you actually, oh, I forgot to put my light on. If you actually think about our issues yesterday, our issues were scoring goals. Our midfield was poor, but our main issue was scoring goals. And I don't really see how bringing in Sofian Amrabat is going to help us score goals, because it isn't, is it? Really. We need Rasmus Højlund back for the game against Nottingham Forest. Like, he has to play in that game. We have to get him back from injury, because being like, oh, he's going to come back for the Arsenal game. I mean, is that really a good thing? Like, is anybody here really confident going to the Emirates after what we've seen in the last 2 games? I'm not at all. And I wouldn't even, like, throwing Rasmus Højlund into that game as his first ever game seems absolutely mental to me. It really does. Right, let's carry on with the rest of the news, though, that we have. So, Fabrizio Romano has also said that Donny van de Beek was not in Manchester United's matchday squad due to ongoing negotiations about his exit. Now, when I see that, it makes me think of Harry Maguire. I know we've been told that he's got a small injury or something like that, but do we really believe that? Do we really think that Harry Maguire's not being pushed out of the club? Like, in this next week or so, we need to see Donny go, Brandon Williams go, Eric Bailly go, Maguire go, McTominay go. Like, we need to sell all of these players and raise some money desperately, because we need another striker now. We need another midfielder now. We arguably need another centre-back now. So, yeah, it is a bit worrying. It is. Obviously, we did a watch-along for the game yesterday. Very, very difficult to take many positive from the match yesterday, especially when we've now, you know, Nottingham Forest, we should be at home. Emphasise the word should, you never know. But Arsenal away, that's a massive worry. And do you know what's absolutely crazy? Last season, we lost every single game against the top 9. The only team that we didn't lose against was Tottenham, away from home this is, and we've just lost against them. So the one thing I do want to say, though, just to try and spin a bit of a positive on this, because obviously everybody's feeling very miserable today, everybody's feeling very negative, and I get it. But this time last season, right, we lost the first 2 games. We lost to Brighton and we lost to Brentford. So if you're looking at it purely from a points perspective, we have more points at this point now than we did last season. Whether that makes you happy or not is up to you. It doesn't really make me happy, but if you're looking at it purely from a points perspective, you know, we are in a better position at this point, 2 games into the season, than we were this time last year, 2 games into the season. So that's the only small positive to take from this, because the game yesterday, there was 0 positives. There was. We created chances, but we can't score them. Onana was okay. Other than that, it was pretty average, really, wasn't it? People saying Ten Hag out in the chat. Like, come on. Like, really? Like, I assume that you're a rival. I assume that you're rival fans, because, like, do people really want Erik Ten Hag out after 1 match? Or after 2 matches? Like, no. Come on. That's not... look, even if you entertain that idea, right? You get rid of Ten Hag. Who do you bring in? It's just going to be the same over and over again. The circle of Manchester United just repeats. It rinses and repeats. They bring in a couple of signings. We do well, and then we flop again. We do well, and we flop again. Like, you know, I mean, we're not... times have changed, you know? And the only way that we can start a new future is with new owners, I think. We need to be able to compete with the likes of Manchester City, with Newcastle. All of these teams are run properly. They have directors of football. They have scouts that actually get people for good amounts of money. You know, we've just spent 60 million pounds on Mason Mount. Like, that just kind of says it all, doesn't it? And we've just spent 60 million pounds on Rasmus Højlund. Like, we've spent a lot of money on players who definitely aren't worth that amount of money, I don't think. So, yeah, it's not... You can't just blame Erik Ten Hag for this. I think that's just a bit of an easy cop-out to be like... I mean, there's quite a lot of you in the chat saying it, but I don't agree with that whatsoever. I just think that, you know, to be saying Erik Ten Hag out after 2 games is ridiculous, I think. Last season, he did so well. He did. I know the football wasn't very good, but we got top 4, we won a trophy, and we got to another final. Like, is that not good for you? Maybe you're the type of person who sat there at home and thinks that Manchester United should be winning the Champions League and the Premier League every single season. That's not going to happen. I would be surprised if we win the Premier League more than once in the next 10 years. I would be surprised. Genuinely, regardless of who the manager is. Do you know how difficult it is to win the Premier League now? Like, so people saying Eric Ten Hag out, just come on. What needs to happen is we need to get new owners. We need to change the owners. We need to get rid of like the directors of football, get rid of John Murtough, get rid of Richard Arnold, bring in people who actually want to prioritise football, people who see it as something for the future, people who want to invest money in it, not take money out of it. That's the issue here. That's the problem. Think about it logically. Newcastle United, they're literally pumping money into Newcastle United with the end goal for Newcastle United is in 10 years, they can sell the club for double the amount of money it's worth. That's how they're seeing it. Whereas Manchester United, it's just been take. And now they want 6 billion for something that they've spent I think they bought it for 500 million. That's the difference here, right? Other clubs understand you need to spend money to create success. Whereas the Glazers want to take money and then still want to, sell it for even more. So yeah, I think blaming Eric Ten Hag is just an easy excuse. So I think you need to actually look into behind the scenes, look at the people who are actually running the club, the people who are making the decisions. People can say, oh, well, he signed Antony for 80 million. Do you think, so you're telling me that Eric Ten Hag was sat in the negotiations with Ajax, negotiating the transfer of Antony? I don't think so. I mean, he clearly wasn't, was he? It's not Eric Ten Hag's job to do negotiations. Richard Arnold and John Murtough approached Ajax for Antony at the beginning of the transfer window, and they were quoted, I think, around £40 million, right? And they said no. 2 months later, they go back in at the end of the window, and then they pay 80 million. And then what? That's Eric Ten Hag's fault, is it? How is that Eric Ten Hag's fault? Like, it isn't. That's John Murtough and Richard Arnold's fault. They had the opportunity to get Antony for 40 million, which is probably how much he's worth. They say no. 2 months later, they come back knocking on the door, and then they're told 80 and they pay it. Like, you can't blame Eric Ten Hag for that. You can't. His job is to manage the team. His job is to play football. His job isn't to do negotiations in the transfer window. Incognito says we had a better season than Arsenal last year. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Right, let's move on with the rest of the news show, though. We will come back to yesterday's game in a minute. Please do smash a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. Yeah, it really does help appreciate the channel. I know everyone's a bit sad today, but King Stash, thank you for the super chat, my friend. King Stash says the youth players and second team are better than the first team. First team aren't playing as a team. They play as individuals. They don't follow tactics. You know what? I do somewhat agree with you. Like, I think after yesterday's performance, I would give Pellistri game time. I would start Sancho. I would give Eriksen a go. I would give McTominay a go. I would change it up completely. I would show those first team players that they're not invincible. That's the only thing that worries me about the current set of Manchester United players. Is Rashford undroppable? Is Bruno undroppable? That can't happen at Manchester United. They need to know that they're undroppable. They are droppable. They need to understand that if they don't play well in 2 games in a row and they're below the level that we require, there are people on the bench who are ready to take their positions. Okay? There was a really interesting quote that came out from Dan James when he left Manchester United, and he said, he'd come onto the pitch and play for 20 minutes and play okay, and then he wouldn't get a game again for the next 5 games, and then there'd be other people on the team who are playing terribly and would just keep getting played, And that's the only thing that worries me. Is there favourites? Maybe. Is there people in their contracts who say they have to get game time? Maybe. I don't know, But it does concern me. And if I was Eric Ten Hag, for the game against Nottingham Forest, I would start Sancho. I would give Eriksen a go. I would give McTominay a go. I would change it up completely. I would. I'd give Dalot a go. I know Wan-Bissaka didn't do anything wrong yesterday, but I would change it up. You can't really change the centre-backs, I don't think. Because I don't think the centre-back options we have are any better. But definitely give Pellistri a go. Definitely give Sancho a go. There is some breaking news coming out in the last 30 seconds. Apparently Crystal Palace are set to make a move for Dean Henderson. Now, we don't know at this stage whether this is a permanent transfer or a loan. Who knows? But Crystal Palace are set to make an official offer for Dean Henderson. This is coming out. From Alan Nixon this morning. So look, let's just try and be positive there. Things can change quickly. They can. If enough players go and we raise funds, Dean Henderson, Maguire, McTominay, Bailly, Donny, Brandon Williams, if all of these people go, we could raise probably 80 to 100 million pounds, I reckon. You go and buy Amrabat, you go and buy a striker, go and buy someone like Gravenberch, and in 2 weeks' time, we could have a completely different spine of our team, because that's what's needed here. We need changes. We need more signings. We can all criticise Eric Ten Hag for getting Mason Mount. We can criticise him for getting Rasmus Højlund. But what's the point really at this stage? We have what we have now. All we can do is move forward positively and try and yeah, try and build a slightly better team. Right, let's talk about this Verratti story then, because this is just classic spin. So L'Equipe in France are reporting this morning that Manchester United have expressed interest in Marco Verratti. It goes on to say that Manchester United is a destination that is not ruled out. How does everybody feel about this? Would you sign Marco Verratti? It's a massive no from me. This is just another, to me, Glazers trying to sign a big name to try and silence fans. 30 years of age. He's not part of the PSG project anymore. He for me, he feels like he should go to like Saudi Arabia or something. I feel like that's his level now. I would not go anywhere near Marco Verratti. I mean, how much money is he going to be on a week as well? Like ridiculous wages. Not for me. He's on 250k a week. Yeah, let me know in the comment section, guys. Would you go for Marco Verratti? Is this somebody that you would like to sign, or do you think this is a definite miss? For me, it's a definite miss. I just think it's classic, isn't it? We lose a game, and then the next morning we're linked to these kind of big name players, which probably 95% of the fan base don't even want, and are like, why are we linked to Marco Verratti? Does anybody here really, really want Marco Verratti? Let's have a look. No, Verratti's too old, not getting any younger, but he levels above what we have, incredibly press resistant. Yeah, most people in the chat are saying, no, I don't want Verratti. I mean, it just screams of desperation to me. It really, really does. He's got a contract until 2026 as well, so you'd have to pay some sort of fee for him. He's not going to be free. If it was a free agent at 30 years of age, maybe I'd take him just for a couple of years, but how much would PSG want, do you think? Probably 30, 40 million pounds for him? It's a definite miss from me. Definite miss. In that midfield area, we need to get Amrabat. We need to get Gravenberch. We need to strengthen that area desperately, because you've got rid of Fred, who I know wasn't the best player in the world, but he did do a job. He worked hard. Whenever he played in those big away games, Fred always did quite well. Do remember that. Give Fred his respect where it's due. When we would go away somewhere and Fred played, he would always put in a shift and he would do quite well. Malp says Pellistri is better than Antony. I don't disagree with you, mate. I don't. Sancho's better than Antony, I think. Antony yesterday, I'm not trying to, single out players, because all of them were pretty poor, but Antony was woeful. Antony was woeful. Rashford shouldn't be playing as a striker, so it's hard to criticise him, because if Rashford was in his natural position on the left, then obviously you could criticise him, but Rashford's being forced to play as a striker, and he's not a striker, Garnacho I thought was quite good in the first half, but still he wasn't as good as he has been in last season. I think at the moment Garnacho is a bit more of an impact sub, isn't he? Murphy says Pellistri should start instead of Antony. I mean, that's the big question, isn't it, for Erik ten Hag, is do we see Antony on the bench next game? That's the thing which really, really tests his character as a manager, isn't it? If he starts making ruthless decisions like that, it's all good and well him getting rid of Ronaldo, getting rid of David De Gea, but it has to be the same message to every player. If Antony doesn't have a good game, somebody else needs to play instead of him. If Mason Mount and Bruno don't work together, he has to quickly change that up. But I think it's very clear to say, what about this as well? What about Mason Mount on the right? I think Mason Mount on the right would be better than Antony. I would probably stick Mason Mount on the right, put Jadon Sancho as the false nine, have Rashford on the left, and then maybe bring in someone like Scott McTominay or somebody into the midfield, because I don't know. But yeah, let's have a look at some of your questions. What are you saying? Al says, where is our scouting department? We need to stop relying on Erik ten Hag to handle transfers. Exactly. That's what I said at the beginning. Like, we need a proper director of football. We really, really do. And it's so easy for people to say, oh, Ten Hag out, we've lost one game. But does he really have the backing behind him in order to get whatever it is your expectations are? I said this before. I said, even if Qatar took over this summer, right, which everybody seems to want apart from a few, if Qatar took over this summer, we got all of the money, we got rid of all the players we didn't want and all the rest of it, I think it would have taken us 3 to 5 years to win a Premier League title. I genuinely believe that. Even if we had Qatar take over us this summer, I think it would take that long. I think we're that far away from it, and I thought this before we had these this bad start to the season. I was saying this in the middle of the summer. Just remember, everybody, if Qatar come in, it's not going to be instant. It's going to take 3 to 5 years. We need to get rid of all of the backroom, the directors of football, the CEO, the technical directors, Darren Fletcher, all of those people need to go, right? It's going to take 3 to 5 years. You need to, rebuild Carrington. You need to get new scouts in. Everything needs to change, and that will take time. So, I don't really know what people were expecting this season. My only expectation was, okay, and I said this, you can look back on my videos, my only expectation this season was to see better football. That was my expectation. I wanted to see more attacking and more Erik ten Hag style football. We saw it for 15 minutes in the game yesterday against Wolves, against Tottenham. 15 minutes of that game, we played Erik ten Hag ball, the first 15 minutes. And it looked good, and I was really, really praising them. But for the rest of the game, it was terrible. Now, what I think is going to happen now, obviously the last couple of games we've been playing like a 4-1, 4-1, 4-1 or a 4-3-3. I think the next few games we'll play a 4-2-3-1. I think we'll go back to defensive. I think we'll go back to pragmatic. And I think we'll win games. I do. But that's not going to be Erik ten Hag football, is it? That isn't how Erik ten Hag wants to set up. He wants to set up how we played yesterday and how we played against Wolves. And it didn't work. Is that because of the players? Is that because of they don't do what he's telling them? I don't know. I'm obviously not in the changing room to work that out. But I'm pretty confident that the next game we will go back to a 4-2-3-1, I think. And it'll be way more defensive. Obviously, you'll have Casemiro and probably someone like McTominay sat in front of the defence. And I think that's what we'll do for the rest of the season. And I think we'll probably get top 4 from doing it. But I don't think the football will improve. Yeah, that's my opinion on it anyway. Let me know what you think about that one. Right, let's move on with the rest of the show. Abba says, Kieran, say the Glazers don't back Erik ten Hag and then sack him. Do you think the fans would back him enough to try to keep him in as our manager? Because surely stopping this project now would be foolish. Well, I think if the Glazers stay and they sack Erik ten Hag, there will be outrage, 100%. But I don't think the Glazers would sack Erik ten Hag. I think they're just happy as long as they get top 4. Remember now as well that if you finish 5th in the Premier League, you get Champions League, right? So it's not top 4 anymore, it's top 5. And I'm pretty confident we'll get 5th, I reckon. So when you look at it like that, I know everybody in this community wants us to do better. Some of you think we're going to win the league. Some of you think we should be winning the Champions League. Some of you have different expectations, right? Which is fine, that's up to you. But you only have to finish 5th now to get Champions League. So the level has changed. It's become easier. I know the competition's got harder in the Premier League, but if you're actually looking at it based on how many points you need to achieve Champions League football, it's less. So yeah. Somebody says, what do you think about Matheus Nunes? Yeah, is that the guy from Wolves? Yeah, he looks good. He does. He looks really good. Right, let's crack on with the rest of the show, though. Please do smash a like on the video, everybody. And please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. Yeah, let's crack on with the rest of the show, though. Right, so moving on to other Manchester United targets. So it looks like Kolo Muani is set to move to PSG. That was being reported last night. Whether or not people thought we were still in for him, I don't know, but I'm just bringing you the news. He was somebody that I thought would have been good. I did, but, you know, he's going to PSG now. Mohamed Kudus. Apparently West Ham have had a bid rejected by Ajax. The offer is apparently below the required fee. Ajax want to keep the 23-year-old after multiple exit requests, but he does plan to go. So West Ham are really, really pushing to sign Kudus from Ajax. What does this mean for Scott McTominay? I'm not sure. If there isn't those types of conversations being had today at Manchester United, then that's a massive concern. If they're not sat there this morning saying, can we spend money? No. Okay, we need to sell these players, then that's a worry. And I do fear for what the rest of the season will look like. People saying it applies from next season, the top 5 thing. That's what I thought. And I said this on the show a couple of days ago, and somebody was like adamant and messaging me on Twitter saying, no, look here, it's top 5 now. Let me have a look for you quickly. Do get some questions in, and I will read them out in a minute. Yeah, I mean, because it says the new Swiss format will come into play in 2024-25, but I think it means if you finish 5th in 23-24, then in 24-25 you would be in the Champions League. That's my understanding of it anyway, but I'll try and do a bit more research into that one. Yeah, I think the football will start to improve now. You know, there's no way that anybody behind the scenes can be happy with what we've just seen there. What does this mean though? Dean Henderson to Crystal Palace. This has to be a permanent move. It has to be for money. It has to be for actual cash. If this is a loan move, that's an absolute disgrace. I want to see 20 to 30 million pounds in the bank for Dean Henderson. 26 years of age, obviously played for England, played for Manchester United. He was on the bench yesterday, so he is fully match fit now. There was another goalkeeper on the bench yesterday as well, wasn't there? Was it Vitek? I've not heard of him personally. I think he's a youth goalkeeper. But yeah, we do have options now. Obviously, Tom Heaton will come back from injury soon. We definitely need to be moving on Dean Henderson if there is somebody out there who wants to buy him. Yeah, so we had Dean Henderson and Vitek on the bench yesterday. Let's hope that this Crystal Palace interest materialises into an actual bid. At this point, it just says that Crystal Palace is set to make a move for Dean Henderson. It doesn't say whether it's a loan, a permanent deal. Yeah, it just needs to happen. There's a bit of an update on Sofian Amrabat. So, obviously, as we said earlier on the show, Fabrizio Romano came out after the game yesterday saying that Manchester United are still in the market for more players and that a midfielder is the priority position. Now, if we're not submitting a bid for Amrabat in the next 24 to 48 hours, then what is going on? Like, we have to do that. It's absolutely essential. It really, really is. Surely they can find a little bit of money. Like, that's the bit that I don't get. Like, surely there is some money out there to go and do it. Yeah, and then there's a story coming out now saying that Manchester United is still yet to make a bid for Sofian Amrabat, which is obviously obvious. We know that they haven't made a bid. Right, I'm going to read out a couple of questions. Yeah, so in relation to Amrabat, we just spoke about that. Simon saying that apparently Henderson is a loan. If Dean Henderson goes to Crystal Palace on loan, that is a disgrace. That's an absolute disgrace. I'm just going to try and get a bit of clarity on it now. I can't see anything about being a loan. It just says they're trying to... here we go. So it's reported that Palace have joined the race for his signature. The Red Devils are prepared to consider a loan deal with an option to buy at the end of the campaign. Palace have 2 loan spots available for new signings. Blah, blah, blah. So it looks like it's going to be a loan with an option to buy. What's the point? How does that help us in any way? Like, we send him out on loan. We have to pay half of his wages and we get no money for it. It makes zero sense whatsoever. If it's with an obligation to buy, maybe. But we know that we want to sell him permanently. Why are we unable to sell players? Why are we loaning out, a goalkeeper that probably would get into the Burnley team, into the Crystal Palace team, into the, Yeah, so it does look like the Dean Henderson one to Palace will be a loan. For God's sake. Very frustrating. Right, let's read out a couple of your questions. Right, Simon says, who do you think will sell and sign in the last 12 days of the window? So, I think McTominay will go. I think Bailly is going to go. Apparently, Bailly is on the brink of moving to Fulham, just so everybody's aware. But I think it's going to be as a free transfer. There won't be any money coming Manchester United's way. So Bailly will move to Fulham. That was being reported yesterday. It hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but apparently they're in advanced talks to bring him to the club. So I think Bailly's going to go. McTominay, Donny van der Beek, Brandon Williams, Harry Maguire, maybe. I think that's probably about it. I do. And we need to sign a striker 100% and we need to sign a midfielder 100%. We need 2 more signings minimum. I'm going with Amrabat as my midfielder, and then for the striker I'm going for either Gift Orban or Taremi. They're not my number 1 targets, but they're both available for about £20 million. So at this point we've just got to get what's available within our budget. The one thing I was thinking after last night's game was, why did we not just go all out for someone like Harry Kane? Why did we not just go all out for someone like Victor Osimhen? Like, that's the only concern I have from yesterday. Why did we not just spend 80% of our budget for the season on a world-class striker? Because as much as I'm excited about Rasmus Højlund, as much as I think he's going to do well, like, we need a goal scorer now. We scored 1 goal against Wolves and should have lost, and we scored no goals against Tottenham. But we had lots of opportunities to score goals. We need a goal scorer. We've needed a goal scorer for years. Obviously, we had Ronaldo for a year, but... right, let's have a look at a couple of your questions. Yeah, let me know in the comments section, how many signings do you think Manchester United will get? Joe says, is Varane going to the Saudi League? So in relation to Rafael Varane, there hasn't been any more updates on that story. So there was a story coming out a couple of days ago that apparently the team that Benzema and Kante plays for in Saudi Arabia have apparently approached Rafael Varane for him to come to the Saudi League this season. There hasn't been an official bid to Manchester United yet, nothing of that level. I don't think he'll move this season. I wouldn't be surprised if next season maybe Rafael Varane goes. He's got 2 years left on his deal. I think he'll probably stay for this season, and I think next year maybe an offer from someone like Saudi will come in and he'll then move, which I think would probably be the right decision. Manchester United can still get some money for it. So Fabrizio Romano's just come out in the last minute saying Manchester United are not done in the transfer market. They are now exploring. They are continuing to explore options. So the spin has already started, everybody. Get ready for the biggest amount of spin today. By the end of today, we're probably going to be linked to Mbappe, Osimhen, Frankie de Jong, and somebody else. You wait for it. By the end of today, we'll be linked to 3 world-class players. It'll be the Glazers are going to back Erik ten Hag. It'll be like we're going to get a story saying they're going to give him a load of money. People are going to leave. Like, you wait for it. Today will be that type of day. I'm literally just expecting it. Right, let's get into a few bits of what Erik ten Hag said after the game, though, because obviously that is a massive talking point. So Erik ten Hag was asked about signings. So Erik ten Hag on what will happen in the rest of the transfer window. Erik ten Hag says it is not about adding to the team. We have to score goals. I mean, surely he's just contradicted himself in one sentence. You're playing Bruno Fernandes and Rashford as your strikers, and you're saying it's not about adding to the team, we have to score goals. Well, don't you need somebody who can score goals? And we don't have that person. You know? So I don't really get that. Some of the stuff he comes out with does make me a little bit confused. Erik ten Hag also said, I am not concerned with our attacking play, but I am by our lack of scoring. We know this, and that is why we've signed a striker. Okay, I agree with that, but we've signed a striker who's 20 years of age, who scored 9 goals and is injured. Like, so we solved that problem? I don't think so. Like, I don't think we've solved the striker problem. We haven't even seen him play football yet. So I don't really get that. And then he goes on to say that he thought the midfield played well yesterday, which I think is a load of rubbish. And he also talked about the poor away form. He said last season was last season and we live in the future. Yeah, I don't know. We massively need to improve our away form. And do you know what was interesting? Roy Keane came out after the game and he absolutely... Now, you're not going to like this, right? Roy Keane said that Manchester United are the new Spurs. That was what he said. Obviously, wow. And I was just like, wow. Like, does anybody disagree with that? Yeah, it's not great, is it? Right, let's read out a couple of your questions, though. Let's get into them. Where are we? Sean says, exploring questions. What the hell? Are we Amazon? Yeah. Like, we don't need to be exploring strikers. We need to be buying strikers. Alan says, we have to score goals with no strikers. Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't get about Erik ten Hag's quote. It makes zero sense to be like, we don't need to sign anybody. We need to score goals. Well... You've just contradicted yourself there, my friend. You can't score goals because you don't have a striker on the pitch. You've got Rashford, who's a winger, playing as your striker. You've got Bruno, who is getting the best opportunities to score with his head, and he can't score with his head. Right, let's have a look. We've got a bit of an update here on the midfield situation. So yeah, the headline coming out everywhere this morning is the Verratti to Manchester United story. It's classic, isn't it? We lose a game. They put out a load of spin saying that Verratti's going to join, which I don't know. Does he solve our issues? Let me know in the comments section. Does Marco Verratti solve our midfield issues? In all fairness to him, he did make 38 appearances last season for PSG. So it's not like he's a complete flop. You know, he did play a lot of games for PSG last season. And obviously, let's have a look how many games he missed. So last season, he missed 9 games through injury last season. So not a hell of a lot. It's not too bad, is it? 30 years of age, obviously a serial winner. He's won a lot of trophies in his career. I mean, a midfield of Verratti, Bruno Fernandes, and Casemiro, that would be pretty solid, wouldn't it? You know what? At this stage, I would just take whatever we can. Welcome to Marcus, who's just joined the Daily Red Devils Members Club. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. I really do appreciate it. If you do want to join the Members Club, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to do that now. But big ups to everybody who is supporting. And please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to all the people who are new here today. Hopefully we have a bit more of a positive game on Saturday and we can all celebrate together, because I feel like, you know, we've only started this channel recently and the first 2 watch-alongs we've ever done on the channel have both been awful performances. So it's just our luck, isn't it? But, you know, there's not really too much we can do about that. We can only get better from here, all right? We can only get better from here. We can't get any worse than this, I don't think. Hopefully I'm not jinxing it, but I genuinely don't think we can get any worse than how we've been in these last 2 games. Mr. L says, has Erik ten Hag become another Glazer puppet? I don't think so. I think Erik ten Hag has caused a lot of change at the club since he's come in here. I wouldn't call him a Glazer puppet. Definitely not. I think the issue is, right, this is if I'm gonna overanalyze the situation right now, I think the issue is that Erik ten Hag's been given too much power. Okay, he's been given too much power, and the reason for that is because they don't have good people. They don't have good director of football. They don't have a good technical director. All of the people in those roles are not the best people, right? If you had a world-class director of football and Erik ten Hag comes knocking on the door and says, I want Anthony, he might say, well, Anthony's a good option, but there's 2 or 3 other players who are better, they're younger, they've got a higher ceiling, and they're cheaper. But Erik ten Hag's not being questioned. Imagine if you go and speak to Richard Arnold or John Murtough and you're Erik ten Hag. They're bankers. They're not football experts, you know, and they come out with a name. You just laugh at them. You'd say, I'm not taking your advice. Like, so just think about it logically. Think about how the system works at the moment. There's nobody suggesting players to Erik ten Hag. It's Erik ten Hag wants somebody. Okay, let's get him. Erik ten Hag wants this person. Okay, let's get him. That's just how it's working over and over again. Sometimes that will work. Martinez was a good signing. Onana's been a good signing so far. Malacia, okay. Do you see what I mean? But it's probably going to be 50-50. Even Pep makes bad decisions with his signings. He's not going to get every signing right. So it's easy for us to all sit here and slag off Anthony. Yeah. Joe says, Kieran, look at the bright side. Cheer us up. Hit 14k subscribers. You did better than Erik ten Hag. Yeah, well, big ups to everybody in the community. We did hit 14,000 subscribers yesterday. We've only been doing this channel for about 8 weeks. So massive, massive shouts to every single one of you who has been here since day one. I really, really do appreciate you all. So big ups to everybody. Fred says, Kieran, if we get any worse, then we're in deep trouble. As I said, right, everybody just take a deep breath. This time last season, we lost at home to Brighton. I was at that game and it was absolutely miserable. And then we lost 4-0 to Brentford. So just remember that. Last season, we had no points, had just been absolutely battered by Brentford. This season, we've got 3 points. So we're in a better position than we were last season. Let's hope that Erik ten Hag improves from here. I'm sure he will. So if you want to look at it really, really black and white, we're doing better than we were last season at this point in time. That's a positive. We've got some good signings in. Let's hope the last few weeks of the windows, we get some players out, we bring some new people in, and let's hope that we kick on and we have a good rest of the season, because I do think Erik ten Hag's the right man for the job. I'm 100% not Erik ten Hag out. I think I'm Glazers out. I think I'm get John Murtough out, get Richard Arnold out. All of those people need to go, 100%. We need new owners. We need new backroom staff. We need the stadium fixed. We need new training facilities. We need the best scouts in the world. We need the best, coaches, the fitness people in the world. All of that needs to happen now. Erik ten Hag isn't the problem, I don't think. He's been set up to fail. Jose Mourinho, serial winner. Did he win the Premier League? No. Did he win the Champions League? No. Just think about it logically. Think about the other managers we've had. They've all failed. You can't just every time blame the manager. Just don't see it as black and white of that, because I think that's just how this system just repeats. We lose a game, everyone's Erik ten Hag out. We win a game, everyone's like, oh great. We can't be like that. We can't. Right, let's read out a couple of your questions before I wrap up the video. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to read out a couple really, really quickly. Let's have a look. Mila says, how many points do you think we get from Arsenal and Brighton games? So I think we'll beat Nottingham Forest next Saturday. Whether or not I think we might absolutely batter Nottingham Forest. I do. We're going to have to see a response against Nottingham Forest. I'm expecting us to score goals. I'm praying that Rasmus Højlund starts that game. Okay, Rasmus Højlund needs to start, Sancho needs to start, and Rashford needs to start. Those 3 people. Rashford on the left, Højlund down the middle, and Sancho on the right. That's what needs to happen. So I think we'll beat Nottingham Forest at home. I think we'll probably lose to Arsenal, and I think we're going to beat Brighton at home. I do. Our home form is really, really good. So our next 5 games are this, right? So this is the topic of the last bit of the show. So I want you to tell me how many points we're going to get from our next 5 games. The next 5 games are Nottingham Forest at home. So I'm going with 3 points. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can get involved. Forest at home, Arsenal away, Brighton at home, Burnley away, Palace at home. So we've got these 5 games, right? I'm going with 3 points against Forest at home. I reckon we'll lose to Arsenal away. I think we'll beat Brighton at home, 3 points. I think we'll beat Burnley away, 3 points. And I think we'll beat Crystal Palace at home. So from the next 5 games, I'm going with 12 points out of a possible 15. I think we'll lose to Arsenal, but I think we're going to win the rest. And I think we're going to see massive improvements. And I'm trying to stay positive, because otherwise it just drives you crazy. But we do have to see. We're playing Brighton at home. I think we'll beat them. I think we will. Honestly, by the time that Brighton comes around as well, that's in about a month's time. If we're not playing Ten Hag football by then maybe you can start having the worrying conversations. But at the moment, the season's just started. You know, he's got new players in the team. He doesn't have his main striker. We don't even have a striker on the pitch, so it's very, very easy. People are saying we're getting 0 points. Some breaking news here. Saudi club. So there's some story coming out right now. So there's a story coming out in the last couple of minutes saying that a Saudi club are set to make a bid for Anthony Martial. It goes, Saudi clubs are set to offer Manchester United a hefty transfer fee to sign Anthony Martial. It goes on to say that Manchester United are prepared to enter negotiations with Saudi clubs about the transfer of Anthony Martial. So it looks like Martial is going to be leaving Manchester United. Great news. Really, really happy about that. We're just about to sell our only striker. I'm joking. Well, I'm not. We are about to sell our only striker in the club. But the headline is, though, it's a hefty transfer fee. How much do you think we'll get for him? I think 20 to 30 million would be fair. But this needs to happen now. That is good, though. Let's hope that this one happens. And let's hope that, as I said, guys, I'm going with 12 points from the next 5 games. We've got to see a reaction. We've got to see some positivity. But I'm going to wrap the video up here. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back live later on today. Please do make sure you smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Try and have a nice day. Try and let football go for the rest of the day. And I'll speak to you all later.